Iconic, The Economy of Certainty, An Introduction to the Typology of Islamic Legal Theory, Aron Zysow, Harvard University, 1984, Cambridge, Massachusetts. Two elements, say the Mu'tazila, must be present for us to act on a unit tradition. The unit tradition is the Ahad Hadith. First, the unit tradition itself, and secondly, the master rule that informs us of the obligation to conform to the norm contained in the tradition. The unit consisting of the master rule along with the relevant tradition now bears the load of certainty. This master rule does not differ in any significant respect from an ordinary command of God. There is no difference between God saying to us, when the veracity of the reporter seems probable to you, then act according to his report, and his saying, do so and so. In all these cases, we know the obligation of the act in question. The fact that the identification of the obligatory act rests on mere presumption is not a fatal flaw, as the opponent claims. The actions of the divine law are obligatory only because they constitute a benefit, maslahah, and it is not impossible that an act can be of benefit when we do not know the particular state. Our presuming the veracity of the reporter is precisely one of our states. Ghazali, as an Ash'ari voluntarist, has no use for the Mu'tazili argument from benefit, but he is nevertheless able to make use of the same displacement of certainty, for he argues, what impossibility is there in God saying to his subjects, if a bird flies past and you think that it is a raven, then I have made so-and-so obligation for you, and have made your presumption a sign of the obligation to act, just as I have made the declination of the sun from the meridian a sign of the obligation of prayer. It is because of our own state of being as a condition for the obligation of action that the uncertain authenticity of the tradition is of no importance. All that matters is our knowledge of the master rule, and that is certain. In questions of religious belief, however, the situation is different, and it is for the reason that the unit tradition has no place in determining dogma. For here, what is regarded as knowledge or required as knowledge, and knowledge must correspond to reality. God's being beyond vision is a fact which exists in its own right, and not in virtue of our presumption, so that it is not necessary that God be beyond vision, because we presume that veracity of someone who reports this to us. In the domain of belief, there can be no master rule to convert presumption into certainty. We neither know or we do not know. In brief, the efficacy of action may well depend upon a subjective element. Knowledge is concerned solely with what is objective. In this respect, the Hanafis take a very different position. For action too, there exists an objective standard. The fact is that we do not know for certain that we are doing what God wants in conforming to a particular unit tradition. There can be no master rule of the sort that Mu'tazilites posit. For God's will, like God's invisibility, exists apart from our states of being. We can only strive to know God's will. We cannot take part in the creation of valid law merely by entertaining some presumption or other. It is true, however, that we do not have unimpeachable sources for determining every legal question, and are thus called upon to use sources which fall short of certainty. In such cases, we are not immune to error. We obey God in employing our minds to find the truth through these sources, but we do not know whether our particular solution corresponds to God's will. We must be content with affirming generally what God wills is the truth. Samarkandi, belonging as he does to the school of Samarkand, makes the same sharp distinction between belief and action, which we have seen to be characteristic of the Mu'tazila. Accordingly, he rejects the unit tradition in questions of theology. In the case of belief, there is no room for anything less than certainty. Presumption can be a basis for action in the absence of certainty, but presumption is of no use when it is precisely certainty that is called for. Stay tuned.